I'm Mike Uyak. I love to try new things, and I've had culinary adventures all around the world as well as right at home. I've had really wonderful food, as well as some really horrible food. I'd like to share some of my adventures with you, and we'll see if I have what it takes to fix whatever goes wrong. This is Recipe Redemption. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Recipe Redemption. Today, we're taking a look at Marcy's Enchilada. There are several inappropriate jokes just waiting to be told there. But anyway, this recipe hails from 1974 from the Weight Watchers International series of recipe cards. Marcy's Enchilada appears to be an attempt to make that Tex-Mex classic of chicken enchiladas healthier by substituting some things. And as we make it, you'll see what they've substituted. Or how they've decided to make this recipe. I guess there's nothing to it but to do it, so let's get started. Now, the enchilada sauce for this recipe actually starts off with basically a mother sauce made from tomato puree, white wine vinegar, some artificial sweetener. I used Splenda because that's what I had, and some garlic powder, simmered for about 15 minutes. After which I add some diced tomato, some chopped jalapeno, dehydrated onion, or onion powder actually, ground cumin, some dried oregano, some salt, and this is actually more artificial sweetener in addition to the stuff that I already used, garlic powder, and some dried basil. Stirred all together and simmered for another 12 minutes, and then set aside. And here's where it immediately goes off the rails. Start off with, yes, a piece of toasted white bread. Top that with some chopped chicken. Add the tomato sauce that you just cooked up. And from the photo, you get a pretty generous helping of tomato sauce. So spoon plenty of that on there. 1 ounce of shredded Monterey Jack cheese. Place into a 350-degree oven and bake until the cheese melts. So this is the thing. Here we have said quote-unquote enchilada. It's not an enchilada. I'm worried about a number of things before I even bite into this. All the artificial sweetener that went into it. Does this really need to be sweetened? My answer would be no, but you know, this is catering to the tastes of the time, so you know, people wanted things sweetened. This was kind of in the era. Sorry, I'm just kind of chipping some of the slightly over toasted cheese. This is during the era when it was all low fat everything to try and make things healthier. So what they ended up doing was compensating by adding a whole lot of sugar to everything to make it taste better, because fat is flavor. And this at least has the extra step of using artificial sweetener. So, you know, you don't have those extra calories from the sugar. Depending on which artificial sweetener you use, maybe you're trading cancer for obesity, but yeah. So, okay. Oh, okay. The bread, it was toasty, it was crunchy, but pouring this quote-unquote enchilada sauce on top has immediately made it soggy again. Okay. Okay. It's quite sweet. that enchilada sauce has kind of become sort of chunky Chef Boyardee. It's actually not half bad. It's not as spicy as I was expecting. I'm not getting as much jalapeno as I thought I would. I could probably have upped that. It's noticeably sweet. It's borderline. It's not too sweet, but if you're not expecting, you know, additional sweetness out of, you know, your quasi-Mexican dish, it can take you a bit aback. It is by no stretch of the imagination the kind of texture that you expect if someone were to blindfold you and say, here, take a bite from this enchilada. It's very bready. You do notice that white bread texture, even toasted. Even kind of moist, a tortilla will have a different texture, a different sort of structural integrity to it. The white bread really does want to fall apart. I guess on the spectrum of things that I've tried on this channel, this isn't the worst thing. It's not horrible. I guess one could argue it's a little bit healthier than a regular traditional enchilada. A lot of tortillas are actually made with lard, or occasionally shortening. I think I've seen a few where the ingredients said vegetable shortening, but generally speaking, real tortillas, they're made with a certain amount of lard. Fresh tortillas, a lot of times don't. They just make up, they just grind up and rehydrate some masa, and you're done. And they just cook them that way. They do have a certain amount of fat to them, just the corn oil that's naturally in the corn they're using, the masa, is enough to actually hold them together. But there has to be a better way to make an enchilada that's healthier. Now, taking that idea, if we want to sort of take some modern ideas of what is healthy, I'm thinking of removing the bread entirely. And what if we were to make a chicken enchilada that's actually made out of chicken? Worth a shot.
We're keeping the stuffing simple, just sauteing off some red and yellow bell pepper and yellow onion, and set that aside. Now comes what could be the tricky part, butterflying this rather large chicken breast as close to the board as I dare and as parallel to the board as I can. I'm slicing through to try and create a thin layer of chicken, not all the way through. When I'm almost all the way through, I flip it over, cut down, and then across to kind of continue sort of flaying this chicken breast open to try and make a nice, broad, thin layer. It is not entirely uniform, but that's okay because of what's coming next. If there are any thick spots like this bit over here, that's a little tender. Anyway, I'm just continuing to try and slice that through, continuing to butterfly it so I have as flat and as broad a contiguous sheet of meat as possible. Then I cover this with a piece of plastic wrap. It's actually better if you actually sandwich this between two pieces of plastic wrap, but in any case, I'm taking my meat mallet, meat pounder, and actually it helps if you put a little bit of water on top of the plastic, then the pounder can actually slide, and that helps you to kind of mash it down and make an even layer. Trying to make this as thin as possible without actually tearing the meat. This is kind of tricky. I'm not a master of this technique. And full disclosure, this should have been even thinner, but I got what I got. Now I'm taking my vegetable filling and spooning just a bit of that onto my flattened piece of chicken. I don't want to use too much here, because I am about to roll this up, and the more you use, the thicker the roll you're going to get. And as you'll see, it was pretty thick as it was. Now, this is pretty plain, so I am going to take some of that jack cheese from earlier and place some in the center along with my vegetables. This will kind of add richness and a bit of flavor. You don't want to overdo this either. Again, you don't want a whole lot of thickness to this when you roll it up. But also, you know, this is supposed to be healthy, so you should try and keep the cheese down to a reasonable amount if you're trying to make this low fat, which we're not really. We're kind of making this more of a keto enchilada than a low fat one. And I'm going to trust this just because I can already tell this doesn't want to stay together or stay rolled up. So I'm going to truss it, just tie it around the middle, and once I sort of figure out the geometry here, there you go. Just a couple of sort of half hitches on either side, just to keep it together and also keep it into sort of a uniform thickness so that it all cooks more evenly. Now I take my trussed chicken breast roulades, place them in a pan with some oil, and cook them medium-high heat. About 3 to 4 minutes on a side. Don't need to cook it all the way through, but I want it to brown on all sides. So after a few minutes, turn it 90 degrees as well as I can, and continue this on all 4 sides until it gets a nice brown crust on the outside. Then remove to a baking dish. I could have done this in an oven-safe pan, but I didn't think to, so sue me. In any case, remove to the baking dish. Take your kitchen shears and snip off the strings and remove them. Once the strings are removed, pour on some enchilada sauce. Yes, I'm using canned enchilada sauce. I certainly wasn't using any more of this stuff for the Marcy's enchilada, and I didn't really feel like I have any sort of mastery over specifically Mexican sauces. So I'm using canned. It's fine. And covering that with some tortilla cheese, placing into a 350-degree oven for 35 to 40 minutes, or until I get an internal temperature of at least 150 degrees. That will ensure that everything is fully cooked all the way through. I served it with a dollop of sour cream and some cilantro leaves.
Okay, not perfect, but as experiments go, it's pretty close. The flavor is great. I think the concept of the chicken enchilada has potential. I think just the execution can be better. Obviously, I mean, it's me. I make no claim to be any sort of master chef, but if I could actually slice and or pound the chicken layer so it's thinner, more tortilla-like, one, it'll make it a whole lot easier to roll it up here. Two, it'll make it quicker for it to cook, and it'll also roll up into a smaller roll, so it's not this massive thing. And I'm using these mutant grocery store chicken breasts. that are more the size of like turkey breasts. So I kind of did that because I knew that I was probably not going to do very well. So that's part of why I did that. And, you know, so I ended up with a very, very large enchilada. But what do you think? Does this idea actually pan out? I think so. I think it actually does work out. Look at Excalibur here in the camera frame. But what do you think? Is there other things? Are there other things that I could have done to make a healthy chicken enchilada that wasn't, you know, the Marcy's enchilada? Because let's be honest, Marcy, in the immortal words of Ricky Ricardo, you got some splaining to do. It wasn't horrible, but there's so much more that you could have done with this. It's edible, but it was ultimately kind of disappointing. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, do all the internet things. You know what to do. And I'll see you next time here on Recipe Redemption. Bye now.